7:16 on Wednesday, April 26, 2017. Welcome into Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac, 1212 Ambassador Caffrey. Go see our friends over there. If not, just stop in for a bottle of water and some popcorn.
You could do that.
And there's some beautiful cars to look at, and you can get your car washed.
I was going to say, and it'll make you look good, because Rob looks twice as good now that he's driving his Cadillac.
What is that supposed to mean? I feel like I would look just as good driving a beat-up El Camino.
Oh, no. You're a Cadillac man.
Well, now we know. Okay,
you should
Bernie.
have had your Cadillac, and now you do.
I have been getting a lot of attention in the Target parking lot, but, I guess we can thank our friends at Service Cadillac for that.
And Sarah never lets him go to Target alone anymore when he's driving his big old Caddy.
I don't even get attention at the dollar store.
So we're coming up on Election Day, just a few days to go.
It's almost over. Wait, what?
Our coverage will start on the air at 8 o'clock when we start to get those initial returns as polls close. We'll get the early voting numbers, and then they'll come in. We'll stay on the air, of course, until we know who's going to go to the Third Circuit Court of Appeal, and will the school board get the tax it wants? All right, predictions. Carol, we'd like to start with you.
Well, obviously, there's going to be a bigger turnout in Lafayette Parish. I think that bodes well for Thayol. She did very well in Lafayette Parish in the first. The early voting predicts that as well. Mm-hmm. The numbers I've seen, I think it's over 9,500, 9,500, something like that, have cast early ballots. Yeah. Not even counting. I think they have some mail-in ballots that they haven't counted yet. But anyway, remember, it's an 8-parish district, but Lafayette is the largest, and next to Acadia, which had that state representative race, which had 20% turnout, Lafayette had the highest turnout. So I think that's going to hold true, and now I don't think Acadia has as much of a reason to get out to vote. In some of those outlying parishes, it's only the judge race, Court of Appeals race, which probably doesn't excite a huge amount of interest in those outlying areas. Of course, we've got the 3 property tax renewals that hardly anybody has talked about except us over and over again, to let people know that there are renewals, which I do support, by the way, but I am adamantly opposed to the sales tax for all of the reasons we've outlined many, many times. But now we have an Attorney General's opinion that had to the Lafayette Parish School Board saying, "Dear members, it's come to my attention the board, through you as its members, had made certain assertions about a tax proposal to be voted on, specifically referencing a resolution and citing a particular past Attorney General's opinion."
Plans,
right? And he said there's a key facial difference between the language in the opinion and the language of the proposal. The opinion being about the prior resolution that they were citing, which referenced a road project in Baton Rouge when Richard Ayoub was the Attorney General. And he says the effect of the language limiting to expenditures under the proposal to the terms of the resolution is not opined upon at this time, but it's sufficient to note that any lawful purpose draws an important difference between that citing of that resolution, the past resolution, and this one. So the any lawful purpose, which we have said over and over again, the Citizens Against the Tax have said over and over again, is a problem and means that it is not 100% dedicated. Well, the Attorney General seems to agree with that.
All right, Warren, what are your thoughts on the election?
I pretty well agree with that about the turnouts and all of that. I think that Thayol probably has the edge right now. And I will say this about that election. This is the first time I have ever seen any kind of a judicial election in which one candidate came out with some scathing things about the other. And if that thing is right that I saw about the court case where that woman is saying what Judge Thayol did not do and all of that, then I went and read what has been reported on it, where that when they went into the court that day, that was in there to sign an agreement where they had all agreed to. And if that
it wasn't necessarily a ruling out of nowhere.
It was a stipulation.
Just saying, if that is the case, that could really, really bode bad for the Perrette campaign, because it said it came from the Perrette campaign and not from some third party.
Correct.
And that if that is correct, to me, I mean, that is just really overboard.
Glad you brought that up, because that is a violation of one of the canons of judicial conduct, because it is on its face inaccurate. Because and the way it came to my attention is I had a bunch of attorneys call me and say, "Carol, you see at the top of that page it says stipulation. That means the parties agreed to the terms of what's in that paper, that document.
Right.
And that was done in advance. And I understand that Thayil is now answering that on her website. She will be on my show today.
I do think it's interesting.
This afternoon.
Yeah, 2 o'clock, the Rush Report starts. The interesting part about that is you normally see in many races, okay, you could be as dirty and as down and whatever up until the week of. Then the week of, you're going to be holding your dog, walking your kids into school, whatever.
Kissing the babies.
It says a lot that one of the candidates is doing that, and the other one is not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how well that sort of thing, which can be easily explained, but you know what? You're seizing on the opportunity for there not to be enough time for her to explain it. So this afternoon on the Rush Report.
Yeah, and I've had people pull me over and say, is that really true? And I said, well, according to my attorney friends, this was all decided before they got in court, that they had agreed to the terms of this
So she effectively just signed off on what they already agreed
exactly.
on.
Well, the first 27 times I heard that, I was kind of outraged. And then about the 28th or 29th time I heard it, I said, well, you know what? That very well could have been somebody that I know who didn't deserve a damn thing to do with the kids and blah, 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 and this, that, and other. So, I mean, that just...
Turns out it was a former law enforcement officer who was
if that was the case, and apparently...
I believe that is the case.
And that's what I'm saying. Apparently it was. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's different.
Well, we'll see. Again, as I said, on-air coverage will start at 8 o'clock on Saturday. There's twists and turns everywhere you look. A lot of forks in the road.
The most bizarre judicial election, I think everyone can agree, that has ever been held in this area anyway.
There is some movement in Baton Rouge, especially on the commercial activities tax that was proposed by Governor John Bel Edwards. And now he went and sat back down and said, y'all figure it out. If it's not good enough, give me a better plan, Republicans. We'll get our Wingin' It Wednesday panelists take on that coming up. So we've been talking about this commercial activities tax right here on Acadiana's Morning News and within Wingin' It Wednesday. Last week when we talked to the governor, even asked him about, hey, if you're going to do this, why are you doing it on gross? Why are you not doing it on margins, on profits? And there wasn't really a good tax in that. Well, now we know why. The governor's cat tax dies in the House Ways and Means Committee yesterday before even going up for real debate. And sad part, what was his name, Bernie? Was it Sam Jones?
Yeah,
Is
Sam
that
Jones.
Sam Jones was the one bringing it? And guess what? He took it down.
Yeah.
He stood up with it. He held it up high and then slowly put it in his pocket and went to
Sam
lunch.
is known for a little bit for histrionics.
So here we are with this. Businesses.
How long has he been in
a
office?
long time. He's a very nice man, really.
Yeah, no.
He used to be mayor of Franklin.
Yes, that's correct.
Very nice man.
Now we know businesses did not like this. A lot of business groups said, look, people aren't going to come here to operate their business. Warren, what are your thoughts on this? And then I do want to get into some other issues with the budget, especially when it comes to nonprofit status, also coming up. So what are your thoughts about this cat tax, though? Or the cat?
Some of my Democrat friends got really excited about it when they heard it was a cat tax, and they didn't think it applied to the felines. And then they found out that it was actually a tax on business and such stuff, and then they backed off. I think that's kind of what happened in the legislature and happened with the governor, is that they think they can wave a flag up there and say, we got a cure-all method here, but then when the cure-all method comes up, it's worse than the disease, and it was dead on arrival. The thing is just bad from start to finish, is the way I look at it. Now, I did listen to another program on this show yesterday briefly when John Paul Cousin was on there, the Moonbeam Griffon show.
Yes.
And what he said just made so much sense that so many people have said over and over and over, why don't they just act like adults when they do budget up there and take the amount you spent last year and let's use that to start from? But every legislative session when they do the budget, they come up with this mythical number that they're going to have to make everybody feel good because we got all of this money out there we're going to spend. And then, of course, most of the people who are literate say, you're not going to have that much money to spend. So mid-year, we're going to have to start retreating. And that's what's happened over and over and over. But they just keep doing it. I mean, the smoke and mirrors bandit, the gentleman from the Rhodes Scholar was a master at least the people around him, and that then they turned and said, why don't we just take what we spent last year and let's start with that? so that we don't have to come up here in mid-year and say, oh, well, guess what? We don't have as much money coming in as what we had planned. Well, what you had planned, you were all smoking dope. And you must have been smoking some crystal meth and not pot, because pot kind of, I think, slows you down a little bit. But the crystal meth, I understand, it really speeds you up. And so apparently that's what Newt Gingrich said about spending was the crack cocaine of politics. And apparently the Congress for years has been burning some pipes up there. So, Baton Rouge, the state legislature needs to grow up and let's look at this thing in reality. Of course, the big reality is, where can we cut spending? And then we got to adjust a lot of this other stuff that, they keep telling, well, we need to get more money. We need to, this person not paying their fair share. That one's not paying their fair share. We've heard that. Okay. Let's sit down and start figuring out what is a fair share and who needs to pay it. And I think that's what we're going to go to shortly.
All right. Carol.
Well,
as I said earlier, the cat has gone back to the litter box.
The governor pulled the cat from the hat. And we do not like the cat in the hat, so the cat went back in the hat. We have no more cat.
Cat scratch fever.
The important thing about this is he really did pull this out of the hat. We've had that budget task force going, round and round for at least a year. And they're going to make all these recommendations. And then the governor says, oops, no, I have this other idea. What did he think was going to happen? Even his Democrat allies deserted him on this one, which is why Sam Jones, one of his really sincere Democrat allies, pulled the legislation back. Now, when he says, he called it would have made companies that use loopholes pay their fair share. Well, if you're worried about the loopholes, close the loopholes. Do the hard work and figure out the ones that are legitimate and necessary and the ones that are not. Therein lies the problem. Nobody wants to do the hard work because this legislator has this lobbying group behind pushing him to say, no, you can't cut us because that's going to really devastate this industry, and you can't cut the other loophole or take away our exemption because it's going to damage this, it's going to damage that. If there were a way to come up with a rational policy, a fairer, flatter tax with a rational policy for exemptions, that would be the way to go. The governor keeps asserting that 80% of corporate tax filers pay no taxes. Many of those filers are not active companies. They may have filed incorporation papers, but they're not active. So this whole thing was so ill-conceived. Now he throws it back. Okay, you Republicans, you want to do something? My challenge to the Republicans is take him up at his word. Do something that you've been talking about doing for years, which is really finally making significant changes to the tax code and making the budget fairer, flatter, whatever it needs to be to get the job done. Take the challenge.
I'd have to be pretty dramatic with it. I'd have to slam it on the desk. Pop! Warren, you've brought up a lot of times when we get into these conversations about budget, and especially companies who are paying taxes or how they're using loopholes or what. We also have a huge number of nonprofits who are tax exempt. How can we help with that?
The nonprofit thing goes back to when the income tax first came into play. It's my understanding. So when the income tax comes in over 100 years ago, and they were going to tax ordinary people, whatever, the extremely wealthy said, well, we're not going to pay that. And so they told Congress, they said, pass this bill through Congress that creates tax-free foundations so that, we can put all of our money into a foundation, which what we have to do is give some of it to charity every year. I think it's 5% of your income or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, what it did, it allowed those truly wealthy families like the Ford family, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Mellons and them, to keep their family in riches, in wealth, in perpetuity. Okay? Now, I don't care if you get any income as long as you got all the perks that go with it. If you got something out there that owns all your houses, that owns your jet planes, that owns everything, and all your travel, everything is all done at that expense, then who needs an income? Nobody that I know of. So anyway, that was set up for these truly wealthy people, and they took advantage of it. And then one by one, little by little, other people started discovering it. So what we now have is this enormous array of foundations, of tax-free trust that people create, these charities, and they go in and they file their papers with the IRS or whatever. Nonprofit does not mean you don't make a profit. Nonprofit means that basically you're tax exempt. You don't pay taxes. Lafayette General is a nonprofit. I guarantee you they make a profit. You know, the Diocese of Lafayette is a nonprofit. I guarantee you it makes a profit. You know, but those kind of things. And that when you start talking about people say, well, you're picking on the churches, you're picking on churches. Yes, to a certain extent, yes. But I'm going to tell you something. You look around out here, there are two things that if you look, churches proliferate enormously out here. So many of those churches don't even have people going there. They're tax exempt. All of that property pays no property tax.
Wasn't there a former football coach who had a shell church set up in Monroe?
Oh, wow.
I believe. Bernie, you remember that?
But here's another thing that they do.
The former football coach who had a shell church set up in...
Yeah, I tried it. I do. Yeah,
but here's another thing. I'll guarantee you that a lot of them do. They launder drug money. That and strip clubs is the best thing you can do because they both deal in cash.
Our dear friend has just weighed in. Moon says NFL's nonprofit.
It is.
Now,
Well, it's
you
not
like
nonprofit
that?
anymore. Last year they got rid of that.
NFL?
Yeah, they got rid of it.
The NBA?
Really?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they got
All
rid of
right,
both of
but
those.
listen,
Because remember what the whole purpose of that was when they first started? They said, "Well, this is a community event. I mean, it's for the better. It's for the better of the
And that's
community."
why
Why am I
that's
paying
why-
so much for a ticket?
And that is why they also
Yeah.
that is why they're also exempt from antitrust laws.
But listen. I mean,
Makes sense.
apropos of this, I'm just getting a text. Fox News has just reported that Janet Napolitano, who is the chancellor of University of California system, right?
Okay.
They hid $175 million while demanding money from the state. They hid their audit. This audit by the state says they were hiding $175 million. Now, you just extrapolate that, right? Just spread that out over millions or hundreds of thousands of nonprofits all over, and nobody's doing real audits of these things. And a lot of them, remember, John Kennedy for years railed against those NGOs that the state gives money to, and they end up being a shell that they don't, as Warren says, they did nothing, do nothing, don't help the kids.
They do the scary, self audit. I'm worried about that shaking in my boots.
Yeah, well, listen, how many, the housing authority here, look, they hid the audit from people on the board until it finally all came crashing down like a house of cards. Now they're auditing Smile and the Head Start program. We'll see what comes out of that.
Wow. Yeah. It all goes in there. People are getting paid. People, that money's going somewhere. It has to be.
If they're doing a legitimate service,
look, needs to be scrapped and redone.
Needs to be redone, obviously. But I mean, I don't think you want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There are some really excellent nonprofits who are doing amazing work. The problem is, it's like the camel's nose under the tent. Eventually, everybody's going to want to get in the tent.
Yep. Coming up, let's talk about Trump funding for the wall. It seems like it's off the table for now as we work to avoid a shutdown. That's not really a shutdown. On Friday, 7:38 now, Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by Service Cadillac. Stay with us.
I read a thing one time.
7:42. Welcome back to Wingin' It Wednesday on Acadiana's Morning News, brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. Plenty 2016s still on the lot. Great deals on those. Go see my friends Dean, Rhonda. They're all there to help you over at Service Cadillac. And let me tell you, a couple of weeks ago, I had the new XT5, which is a new crossover
You just
SUV.
brag all the time.
Let me tell you, I could have jumped out of that sunroof 4 times. It was so big. I'm just kidding. It was like the whole top of the car.
All right.
Warren, come on back to the show, buddy. Come on back. It was great. And that's all I can say about it. It was just awesome. I mean, everything about it.
I mean, they're gorgeous. The cars are gorgeous. They have all the amenities. They have all of the bells and whistles you could possibly want.
I'll tell you this. You just have to ask yourself this. How many times have you driven up to the service department and been treated as if you were a bother that your headlight went out or that you need an oil change? It couldn't be different at Service Chevrolet Cadillac. Whenever you come out, whenever you pull up, someone comes out, clipboard in hand. Good morning, Mr. Kirkpatrick. How's it going? You need a loaner? So easy, seamless. You almost don't even worry about how much it's going to cost.
In the name, it's in the DNA, Service.
That's it. So go see our friends, 1212 Ambassador Caffrey, where it is also Wash It Up Wednesday, the best car wash in Lafayette.
It is. It's happy
Usually
there.
make it over there about 3 times a week.
Well, it is. It's so fast, and you can go in and out, and it looks like they just
and they actually pressure wash the front of it. You know, the love bugs are out right now. There's someone there to wash it off. So go see our friends over there today.
It's magical.
So it seems weird. The story on Politico says Donald Trump signaled on Monday during a meeting he would be comfortable delaying a fight over funding for the U.S.-Mexico border wall until September. Okay. Yesterday, Sean Spicer said, hey, we're not delaying. It's not a delay. Rush says it's a delay, and he's giving in. Mark Levin, no surprise. It's a delay. He's giving in. Where are we on this wall? And then we have Ted Cruz. He just decided to spice things up yesterday.
I love what Ted Cruz proposes.
So did you hear about this, Bernie? Ted Cruz wants El Chapo
to pay for the wall.
All his billions in drug money to pay for the wall. I don't think that's a terrible idea.
I think it's an awesome idea. I mean, it's like $14 billion.
But and I'm with you. But how are they going to get that money?
I think they already have confiscated it.
Do they have it? That was my question too. I mean, you might.
The money was confiscated from El Chapo.
When?
Then you know what? Then
Did it go into our general fund somewhere, though?
Oh, well,
who
knows?
Government?
Who knows where all of these fines and all that go to,
that's what
right?
I'm wondering. So,
but at any rate, it's somewhere. It's got to be somewhere. They have confiscated
know how much money it is?
$14 billion.
Only $14 billion? How much is the wall going to cost?
That we know of. Well, I think they had proposed, 60 or 70 billion?
Yeah.
But
it's a great idea.
It's like using a drug dealer's car as a patrol car. I love it. It's just that extra. It's that extra
needling to drug dealers. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I like the idea. I mean, why not? He's Mexican. He's paying for the wall.
It's $14 billion.
He has some bad plastic surgery too. Poor guy.
So where did that money go? That's what we need to be. We need to get Clay Higgins on that job.
We never know where the money goes. Really.
You need to call Clay Higgins.
I will.
And ask him,
I will.
Where is that $14 billion? Where is El Chapo's $14 billion? Where in the budget did it go? Because
that'd be a good one for him to, because he went. That's one of the.
I mean, that's
one of the first places.
Y'all kidding yourselves?
Where is the beef?
Isn't that one of the first places that Higgins went? Was down to the border.
Yeah, yes, he did. So, Warren, what do you think? Is this wall? I mean, everyone's saying it's going to be built.
Look. You go back to John F. Kennedy's administration. He had a horrible time trying to get legislation passed. Most people don't remember that. He did get his tax reform bill put through, which really, really helped, but he had a horrible time trying to get anything else passed. And even the press who loved him was saying things about it, was he going to be able to get reelected and this, that, and the other. It was really kind of a do-nothing sort of administration. Even though they were trying, they just weren't able to get it done. And so nobody has had to fight like the Trump administration has up there. My deal is, whether it gets done now or later, I don't care. It's in the drawing board. You got to deal with what you have to deal with. If you're going to go to Houston tomorrow morning and you get up and you find out that there's a big wreck out here on the interstate at exit 100 and you were planning on getting on at exit 101 at University, are you still going to go to 101 at University, get on there and get backed up and sit there for 2 hours cussing and banging on the steering wheel? Or are you going to take an alternative route, go down and then hit the interstate down at Scotta somewhere? That's what you're going to do. There's a roadblock here. There's a log jam in Congress. That you got these people on your side you can't count on. You got the people on the other side who are completely against you. So then you got a plan. You got to work your way around it. And I think that's what he's doing. I go back to the moonshot. Apollo 13, Apollo 11, whatever it was. They made 60,000 course corrections from the time they took off to the time they got back. You have to do those things. And anything that if Donald Trump sneezes, the press is going to scream and holler, look, he's trying to kill somebody with germs. It makes no difference, so he is still my president and I am for him.
All right.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you, Warren. Carol?
Too. All right. There are sections of the border where a wall doesn't make any sense. Like there may be a cliff there, that nobody's going to be able to scale that or whatever. There are sections that it makes more sense. And he has already beefed up the patrolling along the border.
Drone coverage.
The drone coverage, the electronic surveillance, all of those things. Let us remember that those phony baloney Democrats voted when Obama was president to put $40 million into building a wall. The Democrats voted for it. But now, because it's Trump, they're fighting it. I wish all of them would just, get a grip. The people elected Donald Trump. What was the main thing he was going to do? Build the wall. Now he might have El Chapo pay for it. I like that. And so if they are trying to figure him out on a linear basis, he is not a linear thinker. He is an asymmetrical thinker, and he is a disruptor. Yes, we like that. I like that. He is a chaos manager. I like that. Keep them all off balance. Did anybody see that strike on Syria coming? No. He's called all of Congress in today to talk. It's a classified briefing with the entire Senate. How long do you think? I mean, there'll be Chuck Schumer. You will not be able to get between him and a camera 2 minutes after that briefing.
I'll tell you this. I don't really care who pays for the wall. I care who builds it. And as long as it's not the construction company that built Camellia the first time,
hey,
I'm happy with it.
I think you're safe.
Otherwise, it's never going to stop.
I think you're safe. By the way,
never going to stop.
We need to get a poll going to see when they're going to finally complete Kali's Saloon.
Okay. Well, that whole thing, hasn't that... Okay, so we do know about the roundabout. That's the next
That's the state building.
Yeah, that's that part of it. Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I had heard there was some kind of
on 733. I believe. No, wait. That could be local, but 733, which is where the 5-laning should go, not on this South City Parkway, which is another ridiculous. Anyway, the 733 goes from the Milton Highway to Johnston Street. They're putting in that roundabout as part of Kali Saloon. Yeah, so it could be, it could be local, it could be state. I'm not sure because that is.
Okay, well, we don't want them building it either. We don't want the Camellia guys building it either.
No,
because I thought you were going to say, let's start a pool to see when the inside lanes of Camellia are going to close next.
Well, let's see. Well, I mean, how many more times are they going to fix it? That would be the good pool. How many times are they going to shut down one lane or the other?
How many times have they redone the interstate at Camellia and Johnston?
Camellia and Johnston.
Yeah.
Oh, that intersection.
That intersection.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the intersection.
What did I say? Interstate?
You said interstate.
Well, you knew there was a problem when the traffic engineer
has been torn up and rebuilt.
When you look at that thing from above,
you knew there was a problem when the first day it opened, this continuous flow intersection, which is nothing like a continuous flow intersection. When the traffic engineer is out there directing traffic, you know you have a problem.
Yeah.
And I remember that like it was yesterday.
Wingin' It Wednesday continues after this. We'll wrap up with the news this week from New Orleans. The monuments, at least one of them is down, but it happened under the cover of darkness. 7:51, we're back after this. All right, we are wrapping up Wingin' It Wednesday, 7:54, April 26, 2017. Thanks for joining us, Warren Caudle and Carol Ross, with us as they are every Wednesday. Let's talk monuments. We know the Battle of Liberty Place monument that's near the Morial Convention Center was taken down earlier this week. Happened around 2:15 in the morning. The names were covered up on the trucks. The workers were wearing vests. It looked to be bulletproof vests. Masks over their face so you couldn't tell who they were. It just says a lot about, maybe this is just the old Southern mama that I had that said, if you were afraid to tell me what you did, you probably shouldn't have done it. So you just live your life that way. I mean, it's just a weird kind of situation. Warren, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is one of those things where, when you do things in the middle of the night in the cover of darkness with a mask on your face and all that, generally it's not a good thing. And I don't know. On the one hand, that I go back and say, should those monuments ever gone up in the first place? Normally after a war, to the victors belong the spoils, and so none of those monuments are erected anywhere else after wars to commemorate the losing side, but we did here. And it's been a part of the history for 100 years, and I think it's gotten to the point now, most people don't even know what the Civil War was. And that, most people don't even know what Vietnam was. That was so long ago. And so, but anyway, I think this is just one of those kind of a push today to rewrite history, to do away with things, whatever. And, I remember going to Moscow and going to that park where they had all of the statues of Lenin and all of the great leaders of the former Soviet Union and all that. And that was one of the things that made all the news when the communist government fell and the people went out there with cranes and tractors and you name it, and tied cables to those monuments and jerked them down and destroyed them. And we did the same thing with the Saddam Hussein statue in Baghdad and all of that stuff. And this is kind of the same thing as that, except it's done with the government doing it. And that, to me, it's a little bit irritating when you see a city that says, well, we're going to take it upon ourselves to do it. I mean, most of our monuments here, whether you like it or not, they generally are exempt from being defaced, demolished, or whatever.
Yeah.
And to me, it's unnerving when you see that kind of thing, especially coming from the mayor of New Orleans, who's pretty unnerving himself.
Carol, your thoughts?
You
about
think?
A minute left.
All right, I can. I was not born in the South. I have no particular attachment to any of these statues, but they are a part of history. And I don't think you can wipe out history. You can use it as a teaching moment. And to some people, they are meaningful in a way that's not negative. It's not celebrating a terrible stain on our history, such as slavery was. But it is part of history. And so are we any different? As somebody called my show one day and they said, that the Taliban took down the Buddhist statues, because they wanted to wipe out any reference to a group in society. So my feeling is most people who walk past those statues have no real relation to the meaning of them, yet they are part of the history. And I saw that a legislator, I don't celebrate what those statues represent, but I do say that they are part of the history and should be preserved, if only as a teaching moment. And I saw a legislator in the state has put in a bill about historic preservation. They are part of the history.
There are just so many other things. It's a slippery slope. There are a lot of old buildings in New Orleans.
Well,
it's not
true.
just the monuments.
Look, when the students at Yale were protesting something, and it came up on the show that they were protesting something about one of the business, Elihu Yale was he was a slave trader, as I remember.
Yeah,
he was involved in the slave trade.
Thanks to our panelists, Carol Ross and Warren Caudle. Wingin' It Wednesday, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac.